just a little bit after 1 o'clock. So I will open the regular meeting of the Beavercreek Township Trustees of November 10th, 2014. And we will start with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's for tonight. And we have an agenda in front of us. Do I have any? Thank you. Now, is this in regular?
Yeah,
Okay. Do we have any additions, modifications, or deletions to the agenda? Nothing on my right. Nothing on my left. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Paxson.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Ms. Graff.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve the payroll in the amount of $255,559.24.
Second.
Mr. Paxson.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Ms. Graff.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve the bills in the amount of $149,300.60.
Second.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Mr. Paxson.
Yes.
Ms. Graff.
Yes.
Would approve the regular meeting minutes held October 27, 2014.
Second.
Mr. Paxson.
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Ms. Graff.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting held November 3rd, 2014.
Second.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Mr. Paxson.
Yes.
Ms. Graff.
Yes. We open the meeting at this time to anyone who would like to speak. I'm not sure that worked. If not, I don't see anyone.
Thank you.
So we go on to old business? No, old business? New business. This is a Harriet, are you going to present the new business? Who's gonna
It
do
was
this?
actually,
Oh, okay.
I asked Alex to put that on the agenda. Just wanted to open up discussion as far as establishing an official township social media presence, similar to what's done with City of Beavercreek and other municipalities around us, in a controlled setting, whereby feedback would be filtered. So limiting the ability for someone to post back, but essentially kind of just think of it as a community message board. When we have zoning hearings, BZA meetings, our trustee meetings, kind of just a message board and community calendar. In today's world, to get someone to hunt and peck and find your website is one thing, but they tend to follow the social media side a little bit better. So like I said, the best example would be City of Beavercreek's official social media presence. So that's just open discussion.
Yeah, I usually go to the website, I don't go to the other one. But I agree, we should have it. I think at this point, we were looking, or up to this point, I don't think we had enough personnel capability, the timing, put it at the end of time, to do what we need to in our IT and hopefully keep up the website, which I'd like improved too, and do these. So I think it's a matter of how much are we willing to expand the department, if necessary, to create this so it is an up-to-date, viable, continuing kind of presence rather than
Sure.
not quite up-to-date and then people get frustrated.
Right, and I think one of the things that you'll see is that in today's world, as far as you can link your social media, and the city does this, and it's very common. You link your social media and your website together so that from an efficiency standpoint, you post to one place and it actually hits all three or all whatever number of, so that you end up actually still inputting whatever information you're posting. Once you establish the links, you only post it once, and then it auto-populates to these others, to whatever other medium you're using to communicate out there. So I agree, you would not want to maintain 3 separate things and try to keep that up to date, but in today's, with it's DSS feeds or whatever it's called, it's very easy to get that to push automatically.
Well, I'd be happy to see if we could, in my opinion, to look into it and see how we could do it, and do we have the availability of the timing for the people to do it?
I think that, of course, content's important, and who manages the content, and what's on there, and who responds to the content, and in what way.
To me, I think
An informative kind of a thing, or?
right, like a community, like I said, a community bulletin board, a community message board. You know, even when it comes down to tying things in as far as level 3 of snow emergencies, things like that. Essentially, you're broadcasting. I would recommend that the content essentially is filtered by the TA.
So we need to write a little policy of some sort.
It needs
Make
to,
sure
it
that we
needs to
have
be
it.
non-political completely. It needs to be
Factual.
a community message board,
Exactly.
and so that you don't have positive or negative necessarily in one. It's a factual message board.
At least not from just the board out.
It's
What
not-
comes
right.
in is something
No
else.
different than the
Okay.
website. It's not a
Okay.
means to convince the public of it's an informational tool.
Should we aim for this for next year and make sure that we get the policy together and what we want to do and how to do it, and find out if we have the capability within house at this present time, or do we need to expand that capability?
What's your thoughts, Alex?
Well, it's definitely a tool that could be used to get a message out, as you mentioned, meetings, zoning commission meeting, BZA meetings, just public importance, level 3 emergencies. And as the county engineer, and we've heard from Mr. Parks as well, including the sheriff, is that if we have another bad winter, we're anticipating a lot more level 1s, 2s, and 3 snow emergencies. We can on Facebook, Instagram, and a Twitter account, you can create message-only boards. So, for example, Facebook, no one can post things. There is some websites, and I know that I've had some discussion about what it's going to take in 15 with IT to upgrade our website to become a little more user-friendly, get a little more information out, and then also attach social media to that, so that if we do send out, some communities do email blasts. You just sign up for email blasts. Some do email blasts, Instagram, Twitter, as well as Facebook. I think it's the way people are getting information these days. I don't see people as often going to a website to get that information when they can get it directly to their phone or their tablet through a Twitter account, Facebook, or Instagram. And quite frankly, I don't know much about Instagram, but I know a lot
So I
of
think
municipalities use it.
Is there interest by the board to
Yes,
even
I think it's
explore it?
something
So-
to pursue and come back with recommendations on how, what, who.
Yeah, I like the informational part of it. If you leave it open for input, then it's a means for.
Yeah, no, and I would not.
Somebody can request
Right.
anything from
Right, and I would not
public records
recommend.
request. It can come right off there.
Yeah, I would not recommend to the board that we have an open account on those social medias, because you are inviting that type, just complaints about the community, politics about the community. It's more of an informational tool in getting the information out of what the township's doing and essentially business.
What kind of time do you think that would take? Just come in.
It can be set up this afternoon, really.
Oh, so it's pretty quick. And
Oh, okay.
We want to attach it to the website.
I set it up for, I set up for 2 nonprofits that I was involved in, which was a post only, so that we didn't end up with this
Yeah,
blog about things that don't even relate. And literally, once you put the tie-in or the hook into your website, it's one push and it goes to all 3 or 4 places. So it doesn't, setting it up is the one piece of it, but it's fairly simple.
Okay, so what do you, okay, Mrs. Harris, what do you think we should do? We should start right away and do it because it sounds good because it's getting information out and that's positive. And I think we've sort of agreed, there's a consensus that you should be the filter of what goes up and out of, in the township's name. Do you think it's beneficial to start it right away, or do you need time to tell us what we need to get done?
Yeah, it could be set up, as Mr. Terry just said, relatively quick, and right now we can use it for what we're using the website for, posting things on the website, and it would still be posted on the website.
Right.
But like Mr. Kratz said, once you post it on the website, we can then send it out through that media.
Push notification.
Yeah, and it'll go to whatever accounts that we deem necessary. Most of them use Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'm gonna have to turn to Mr. Terry about Instagram, but yeah.
I think Facebook and
Yeah,
Twitter
Facebook and
would be a
Twitter
good
are the
start.
more popular ones.
Right.
Okay, well, is it a consensus then that we should start it, but those accounts pick specifically to post information that pertains to the township?
Yeah, I think if anything is questionable and what to post, I think that the
Well,
board ought
that,
to
this
have.
is, everything was gonna be filtered through the township administrator.
That was purely my recommendation.
I think that's an excellent, we want
I-
one focus, we do not want 100 people putting to
I
stuff in.
don't, right, I don't disagree with what I think Mr. Paxton is suggesting, though. You want ultimate, if there's, content-wise, we want to define that content, of the type of content you want to put on there.
Yeah,
And
well,
then-
I
and
would
then
say
leave it up to
initially,
the administrator.
information, the information about our meetings, the information about alerts,
Yeah,
information about
Right.
weather,
right.
at this point,
Yeah.
and post things that we would
Fit that
normally
category.
post that is just strictly informational, and we see how it goes, and then if we need to, want to expand it, we can do that.
Let me ask this question, this may simplify the whole thing. Who is the filter for what goes on the website? The township administrator?
Well, it depends. I mean, you know,
I put my own stuff on,
yeah.
but it's just minutes.
But it fits a category.
Yeah, I don't, I
It's
just put
public
anything
record.
that has to do with the fiscal
Special
office.
meetings gonna, yeah.
Notices, our requirements to post our financials and our
Right.
minutes every 2 weeks. I mean, I do that myself. I manage that
Okay.
part of it myself.
Okay.
And fire posts the informational stuff on their website, open houses, conducting this type of training, pictures, those type of things.
But if we said that we would post in a consistent manner with what we currently post on our website, would that define it properly?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we don't put,
We wouldn't go outside of that box.
yeah, we wouldn't go outside of what we're currently doing right now. For the levy that just passed, that it's another network to get the information out. We can't ask on our website or any.
You can't say
social
vote, but you can say this is
vote,
what it's
but we
for.
can send the information about what the levy is about.
Right.
So,
And hopefully we don't have to do that for another few years. Congratulations. Okay, I think you have, would you like to have a motion to that effect? Or you just have your marching orders?
I don't think so.
It's just
Okay.
expanding our
Given
web
direction
presence,
to
yes.
staff.
Okay.
Okay, you have a consensus of the entire board to go ahead with that. Okay, Mr. Harry, if you don't seem to have anything down here for the report, Mr. Gustafson.
Good afternoon, Board.
Mhm.
I don't have anything specific for the agenda, but I will entertain any questions on my bi-weekly report that you may have.
Mhm. Anyone have any questions on the bi-weekly report?
Nope.
Any challenges or issues we need to be aware of? That-
Yeah, well, we're just very busy right now with a lot going on.
Okay.
I don't know that's anything specific to mention, but
Okay.
just know that we are all working hard down here at the moment.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Ms. Armstrong.
prior to the bi-weekly report, I have a request for a special trustees zoning meeting. There are two items that would be on the agenda for such a meeting. The first is a rezoning request from a resident at the north end of Beaver Valley Road near the intersection of New German and Trebein, to rezone two parcels within her property for purposes of subdividing the property and selling a couple of residential parcels.
Which corner did you say? Which
Probably
corner?
the south,
Did you
east,
say which corner?
southwest. No, he didn't.
It's directly across from the Kugler wetlands.
No,
It's
on the south side.
one parcel in from the corner. And then the second item is to consider site plan, a specific site plan that was approved with conditions by both of these items were approved by the zoning commission at their meeting last Thursday night. And so they're ready to come to the Board of Trustees. So one is a rezoning and the other is a site plan approval. Excuse me, I advised both applicants that it would be my preference that the meeting take place upon my return from medical leave, that is after the 1st of December, and they both agreed that that was not a problem. Rather than having to hand this off to somebody else midstream. So if you're willing to look that far ahead, well, it's a couple of weeks, but sometime after Thanksgiving.
That would work with my calendar.
Just be an evening?
I don't
Yeah,
have a
usually
specific
7. Yeah, we do
recommended
the
date,
7.
but well,
When is our first meeting in December?
The 8th.
it is the,
Okay,
let's see,
yes,
the
yeah.
1st is a Monday.
Okay, so do you want to do the same
So the
thing that
first
we're
meeting
doing
would be the
today?
8th.
Is have the regular meeting in the afternoon and that meeting at night?
I
On
can
the
do that.
8th.
The week of the 15th, I'm in Colorado, so.
Okay, well, that limits us. Okay, so that gives, what about
The
you,
8th.
Mr. Paxton? December 15th? 8th?
December 8th.
Okay,
December the 15th.
8th.
8th. Be the same day as our meeting,
Just in the evening.
7 o'clock.
but in the evening.
7 o'clock,
Oh,
yes.
Sure.
The way we're doing it today. With the,
Is that a 7 o'clock?
it'll be a 7 o'clock meeting.
7
Okay,
o'clock.
that's fine.
Thank you very much for that. So, other than that, if there are questions on the bi-weekly report, I'd be happy to.
It just looks like you've been very busy.
Just a tad, as have we all. And so it shall continue for some time, but that's all right. Beats the alternative.
It's amazing to me, it's almost 100% increase from last year, and still moving.
Do you project next year that single-family dwellings will stay the same or double again?
I don't think they'll double again. I think they'll increase a little bit because these are coming from a couple of subdivisions that are just getting going. And there's another one that hasn't begun to submit applications yet that is ready to go. They're preparing some modifications to sidewalks now, and I anticipate a model home application from Liberty Hill 2, and they're paving in Bexley 3. So I suspect there will be an increase. I don't expect a doubling. We'll go from this year we'll hit 50 certainly. Next year maybe 65 or 70. I don't know.
That's
Something like that.
pretty good.
Let me ask you something, Ed. These houses and these new subdivisions, is the contractor obligated to put in so many houses in up front? Would you know that?
No,
Okay. I think some of them have
It's cheaper to go up front, so.
yeah, and then
People
so many
pick them.
houses put in each year if so many don't sell. So if somebody lots don't sell, they have to keep moving on developing the subdivision.
The only obligation they're under with regard to obligations to the township,
Right.
unless we were to impose a bond, and that we haven't for a long, long time as far as I know, we leave that to the county folks. But the only other obligation is that a site plan approval expires after 5 years. So if they haven't if construction isn't substantially underway within 5 years and they haven't asked for an extension, then their site plan approval expires.
Okay.
That's the only obligation they're under as
Yeah,
far
but
as.
they don't have to build any specific number of homes at any point in time.
Yeah, I know, some of them have that.
There are a
but-
couple of if-then conditions.
Yeah,
You can't move into your model home unless you have certain kinds of permits from the county and so forth. But other than if-then kinds of things, no.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and I think most of them up to this point, at least the last few years, they didn't build a house unless they had already sold it. They weren't building spec houses very much in the last few years. Have this changed now?
I don't see a lot of spec houses going up. But you might see, in this subdivision for which we're going to consider a specific site plan, I'm told that as many as a third of those lots are already, shall we say, spoken for, even though they don't exist yet. And they're spoken for by contractors, not by individual
Okay.
clients. So it appears that contractors might want to take advantage of the opportunity to put up a truly high-end home. They've been in the middle range for years, and this subdivision will be at the higher end of the spectrum, and so they want to show what they can do, I guess. But at least 3 different contractors have purchased the rights, let's say, for parcels in Woodridge. And there are 42 lots in there, and maybe 15 are spoken for.
Yeah, looks like we're gonna be
So,
building out in Beavercreek. Yeah, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Terry?
Good afternoon, Board. Nothing for the agenda. Well, I do have the renewal or extension of the IT independent contract. So we're just about out of time. I think Mr. Erickson has about 70 hours left currently. If we're going to take it out to the end of the year, we'll need to extend it. I believe it was approximately 40 hours. Keeping with the same contract at 20 hours a week until we have some direction or a decision from the information received from the Novak Group.
We have that information. So, questions we can, do you have any comments on the request?
When does the current term expire?
I believe it was 17 November.
After today, is that what we figured out? Yeah, 40 hours left after today's hit.
20th.
When is our next meeting?
Next meeting is 2 weeks,
24th.
it's the 24th, right?
24th.
It's been the 2 weeks. And that would be almost no hours left.
That would, he has till
'Cause it's,
about the 17th, depending on if we need to work them more than the 20 hours
Right.
or less.
It would be like the last day.
Be approximately the 17th of November would be the last.
I guess we have decisions to make on the whole.
Administrator, what's your perspective on this?
Well, one of the recommendations you saw in Novak was to keep an IT contractor. The board hasn't made that decision in regards to moving forward with that recommendation. I would recommend that we continue Mr. Erickson until the end of the year and then discuss 2015 at another time.
Okay, so you're saying we should really modify this to say 20 hours a week through December 31st? There's no point in doing
We're talking
4
about
weeks
it.
and then doing another 4 weeks. I mean, that's,
Well, the reason I stopped it there was because we're into, I think, the 19th of December. We start January's pay,
Yeah,
That's the next
2015.
pay
December
period.
19th
So-
actually starts 2015 budget.
well, that,
So
I don't think that's,
that's the only
critical.
reason I didn't extend it out. We can, if
that's
that's,
up to,
Well, that gives us, roughly 4 weeks to determine what we're gonna do.
Right. It gives you.
okay, and we have a request for meetings a little further on, okay. So do I have a motion to approve this request that Mr. Terry's making for Mr. Erickson?
I think there's a couple of things we need to discuss in that 4 weeks, though, as far as beyond this piece of IT, there's other components, of IT that were brought up in the audit that
Right.
we should talk about and
Fire.
kind of come up with a whole plan.
Right.
I think we can do that. In the interim, I'll make the motion. I'll make a motion to extend Mr. James Erickson's current contract with Beavercreek Township beginning on 20 November 2014 for a period of 4 weeks or 80 hours, whichever occur first, and have the township administrator sign for the board.
I'll second.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mr. Paxton,
Yes.
Ms. Graf.
Yes.
Is there money in that line item to do that?
I'll get with you. I do have money. We might have to just move it to,
Do we need to
open,
move money?
Well, I
PO
don't know,
or-
I think that probably should have been.
Okay,
something
since
we
it
did
doesn't
before.
start to the 20th, would they, is there enough money through the 20th? And then we could move the money at the next meeting if
yeah, to
necessary.
cover them through the current term, and then, yeah.
But is it, we can wait until the next meeting to do that, because it won't be,
Yeah, there's $1,280 left in the current purchase order for Mr. Erickson to take him through
pay
to
out.
that period, and then
Right.
this 80 hours additional, I need to figure out
okay.
Okay.
where we're taking that additional money from, because there isn't any money in contracted services to do that.
Okay.
Well,
We are gonna have to figure something out.
Okay, I
Yeah,
think,
that's-
we'll be creative, we can do that.
Deny.
Yeah, I'll get with you.
Before he starts the new period,
Oh,
we
yeah,
have to have the money encumbered, so it has to be done before he starts the new period.
Yeah.
But we don't have a meeting before then.
Well, I don't need the board's approval as long as it's in the same object. though.
Okay.
As long as it's within
Yeah.
his
From
budget.
where, okay,
Yeah,
If he's moving it from contingencies, then I would need your approval, but if he wants to just rearrange his own budget, which is not
Yeah,
what he
it's,
wants to do,
it's.
right?
well, that's
yeah, I
fine.
got-
Okay, then I
As
don't
long
need
as
your-
we have it worked out and we don't get anyone in trouble.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, any questions on Mr. Terry's, report?
I have one question. Under training, you have in there, research and product reviews, new Android tablets.
Yeah, we're looking at exploring that avenue versus the iPad
Okay.
for, because we're at about end of life on the iPad 2s, and we'll look at the new iPad as well as the Android devices, and, we may bring one online and, have the township administrator possibly test the new Android system and see if there's any quirks in it, how it operates with our remote management, software, and, I personally prefer the Android devices. They're a little bit easier to manage, but we'll get the consensus from the board. But,
They all work about the same, yeah.
they're,
We don't have to learn too much different.
now, there's a little bit more additional software, free software with the Android devices.
Well, the one thing with the Android devices that are out there that are not in the iPad is expandable. So you'd be able to put expansion slots and keep more files and et cetera on the device itself. But we're looking at all the options and what's out there for us. The other, whether we go with the Android or the new iPads, whatever that may be, as we phase those in, those will all be on 4G, which technically we're paying now, but the device is only limited to 3G. So,
Any other questions, Mr. Terry?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, board.
Mr. Parks?
Good afternoon, Board.
All ready to budget your new money, right?
That is a work in progress. I'll just say that at this point.
Oh, we won't even get it for a while.
True, but it's the whole process of making it last through the 5 years. Actually, the only thing I have on my agenda for today is a request through the Rotary Park budget to put up a 24 by 40 pole barn to store equipment actually on the property itself. Because currently what they're doing is like the big Jacobson mower that's about 30 grand or better, sits outside in the weather. A lot of the supplies sit outside in the weather. And what stuff they can fit at the municipal building, they keep it in there, but now you're transporting it back and forth. This is something they put in back in November of last year, and it's built into the money we've set aside for the Rotary Park deficit money. But it is a capital improvement. So for it to move forward, it needs your approval.
But it's not a capital improvement of which we are paying the entirety. It's
It-
part of the overall operating budget and whatever it is we
It is
share.
broken out as a capital improvement in that Rotary money.
Right.
So you are paying 100% of that cost.
Oh, okay, so we are
That's
paying
why it came
100%.
before you to get approval.
Okay, so it's not in the deficit. It's in
Right.
addition to the deficit.
Right, and it's actually built into the 102,000 we set aside at the beginning of the year, so. And actually, it did come in under budget.
Okay, I understand that a little
roughly-
better now. That's different, I'm saying it's part of the deficit.
It's
what
built
you
into that
planned.
deficit budget, but it's a capital piece.
Right, okay, okay, I understand that. It has
And I-
nothing to do with the operating.
Yeah, and I did kind of put in your packet kind of some rough designs of the colors and the design of the building, just so you're aware what would be going up if you approve it to move forward.
Yeah, we have any comments on this?
Is that 24 by 40 gonna provide
It should, because
enough
basically,
room for growth, so to speak?
basically that park is almost as big as it can get,
Yeah.
because we're out of land. And it'll keep their mower and supplies and stuff inside, along with the one truck that's assigned over there. And all their miscellaneous little equipment, like the groomer for the ball fields and those kind of things, that the city maintains. Now each, like BYSA and the Sox have their own little sheds where they store their own stuff in there, so.
And the garage doors, bay doors?
Yes.
In there, one or two?
I think the design shows one door that is,
3 panels wide.
it's on one of the drawings, and apparently I didn't put it in there, but it's,
Large enough to drive the vehicle.
yes, it's
and
large
the
enough to drive stuff
Okay.
in.
Yeah, it looks like 3 panels worth, however big the panels are.
No, that's all that, okay.
Okay, and then
All right.
any capital improvements in the property of the township, since we paid 100% of that.
That is correct, and that's why we kind of put a hold on this project until I got your approval to move it
Right.
forward.
I've seen the stuff sitting out back and it's
Yes.
not
And
a
it-
pretty sight.
No, and if you've ever been back there, what they've tried to do is actually get the colors of the building to blend in with the stuff
County
up at
buildings.
sanitary.
Yeah,
But if you've ever driven back there, they've got stacks of fence and junk. It just looks
yeah.
Tacky.
tacky, would be a good word. And this would get everything in the building, kind of like we do at our facility. Everything we can get in, we get in, other than ball diamond dirt or that kind of stuff that they'll still be out.
Now, the equipment that's being used is the city's, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and so this storing that, and that's used to maintain the park.
Right.
And I'll store it in the facility here.
Right, and actually, we're paying up 50% of the maintenance for those
Well,
vehicles.
yeah, it's part of the operating.
Which is part of the operating.
Okay. I'll
Any
make the
questions?
motion. You
Okay.
got anything, Tony?
I recognize the need to keep equipment under roof. I must be the only one. I find it mildly offensive that the city would ask for this when we're spending over $100,000 to keep the park from being annexed to them.
And to be honest
That's
with you,
over
that
and
is
above.
why it's
Can I write
before
that
you.
down, please?
Would you like to put that in a, no?
It's my opinion.
Yes. It is under the contract, and that, the contract predated the annexation. And the park will still be our park regardless of how that
I said
case is
mildly offensive.
decided. Oh, yes, I find it very offensive, but you know, I'm looking at it from like an operational point of view.
Doesn't change that.
And did their levy pass?
Yes.
We don't know that it's close until the,
It's close, but with the amount of provisional balance that are out there, the city's anticipating a pass.
okay, so we're gonna still have the agreement is still in effect, at least for another year or more, right? Because they haven't
That
given
is
us a
correct.
year's notice.
Right, that is correct, and maybe at the end of this contract period, we go back and we try to renegotiate anything in that park is 50-50, if that's your desire, instead of capital's all on us.
Yeah.
If they have designated operating money for their park system.
Yeah,
Do we know when that
that's
agreement
right.
expires?
I think it's got 3 years left, to be honest with you. That's just off the top of my head, so don't quote me on
Yeah,
that.
it's been a long time since we've done it.
Yeah, it was 10, and I've been here almost 8, so.
Okay. With your expression of distaste, mild distaste, which I understand. Do I have a motion to proceed with this, or should we deny it? That's our choice. If we don't act on it, it doesn't get done.
I'll make the motion because there's expensive equipment down there that needs to be housed. And if we're part owner in it, then,
We're not part owning the equipment, we're just part owning the maintenance thereof.
We are part owner of the maintenance, however, I can tell you those maintenance costs are going up because that equipment is getting older and it doesn't help it sitting outside.
But title to the equipment that would go in the barn is the city.
To this point, yes, because they have not asked for any equipment purchases.
Right.
Do I have a second?
Do I, okay, so Mr.
I didn't hear a motion.
Okay.
Jackson
Oh,
made
he
the
said,
motion.
I'm sorry, I interpreted you said you would make that
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
motion.
Did you
I'll
make
make the
that
motion
Okay.
to proceed with the pool barn project at Rotary Park as presented.
Do we have a second?
Not for me.
For reservation. I'll second it with reservations. I agree with if the comment, can we have comment in there?
I didn't write it down. Do you want them in?
The comment is, we have mild objections with asking for such a request while there's ongoing litigation.
Pending litigation.
Affecting the property. Is that a fair representation?
Oh, yeah, you guys can read it when I send the minutes out
Sure.
if it doesn't say quite what you want to say. Mr. Paxton?
Yes.
Ms. Graff?
Yes?
Mr. Kretz?
No.
Thank you, Board. The last thing I have on my actual agenda is an informational item. We can apply for a county gas tax grant every year. We did as part of our chip seal program, and we actually received $2,985.40 towards that project, which took our net cost of chip sealing Howard Circle to about $39.63 for the year. So we did recoup some of that cost back. So.
Is that part of the 50% of one of the, I call piggyback levies that the county collects?
Yes.
And part of it goes to
You
us,
can-
and we have to request that money.
You have to request it every year, and it's broken up. I'm not exactly sure how it's broken up because I can tell you there's smaller townships than ours that receive a greater amount than we do. But it was set up way back when, and I'm not
Okay.
positive because I haven't done the research to go back.
Maybe Mrs. Zaharia remembers, maybe he doesn't. when the taxes first came in, we had various options, and I call them the permissive taxes, is that what they're calling them? I call it piggyback on the license fee. Of all the cars and vehicles that are registered in the township, the township has, I think, a $5 one that we get directly. The county has a $5 that it gets directly. And then the county put another $5 on, I believe, that gets split 50-50 with the jurisdiction in the county. And I think that's where this comes, if my recollection is correct, and it's been a long time since it was implemented.
Yeah, it's been a long, long time.
Well, some of us have been around.
Yeah.
But I remember when they were all adopted. And I think that was how I remember it, which brings our license fee taxes from $20 that goes to the state. All these extra $5 hither and thither add up to whatever, I don't even remember what I paid last year. That's at least $35 for a car license, but that's where those all come from.
We can actually pay to have it audited.
What?
We can actually pay to have that audited to make sure that the addresses are correct and we're actually getting our money, but there's a
Yeah.
cost involved with that.
Yeah.
Christine, I looked into that when I first got here because we were doing it where I came from. And they do find that people aren't listing their addresses correctly.
Right, they don't.
And their zip codes aren't right, and we don't get our $5
Right.
or whatever. So I mean, that's just, if the board would like to look into that, that's something
Oh,
we can
that's
probably
something
do
we
next
might.
year.
That was true when the city split off from the township, and the state was not sending the monies properly to anybody, and we did send people up to Columbus to go
It
through.
might be worth
check.
looking into next year to see if it would gain any more revenue.
I think that'd be an excellent suggestion. I think we need to put it on a project list. Never know, it might pick up a few here and there.
Yeah.
You don't.
Better than nothing.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of cars that people have been registering in other places that don't have all these permissive fees. But can't do anything about that.
And the last thing I have is my biweekly report. I can tell you a lot of the last 2 weeks have been spent in developments. We're at the end of the construction season. Everybody's trying to beat the weather. The nice thing about that is, by the end of the day today, everything that we started in spring will be under pavement. So, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has it.
Good job on the grant.
Well, every little bit helps.
It helps big time. Just a point of reference on the bucket truck discussion. I happen to be renting equipment from one of the equipment rental companies, and both Arts and Beavercreek have used bucket trucks for sale.
Okay, we'll look at that.
It may be
They look nice.
beyond your budget. It may be with, I don't know.
And everything we found so far in this area or somewhere close is anything in that budget range is either rusted or pretty well wore out. So that is something we'll look at.
Just point of reference.
And another thing to follow that up, we did actually get the bucket truck out on Gov Deals. As of this morning, we were at just under $4,500. So we're going to recoup that. I have strong feelings we'll recoup that $5,000 that was requested by the board as a buffer.
It's signed.
What about lease option? Have you looked into lease options on apparatus like that?
Not yet. I mean, that's something that's out there, but then it's going to tie us into a long-term kind of deal. I'm not
Meanwhile,
sure.
you're without a bucket truck.
Right. Well, it's not the fact that we're not looking. Well, we haven't looked in the last couple of weeks because we've been extremely busy with stuff on the maintenance side and on the road side. So we'll continue to try to get us someplace. I mean, we found a lot, but I'm not sure that we want to pay a couple guys to go to Texas to look at a truck in that price range.
Well, once you have Gov Deals completed, you'll know what you have to work with from there. You may end up with a little better. So.
Yeah, it's possible. Thank you.
Chief Marks.
Good afternoon, Board. Thank you for having me. Obviously, I am here filling in for the chief, who I think's in sunny Minnesota. Snowstorm's coming or something. Yeah, I don't know if he's gonna make it back or not. We'll have to see.
Are they having a snowstorm up there?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he's,
And
It should all stay there,
that cold front's coming here next, and
leaving the snow there,
we
right?
do have
Yeah,
snow in the
we don't get
forecast
snow
this
till
weekend.
Saturday.
No, we're not allowing that.
Flurries. That's what we're hoping. is
We're gonna
flurries.
blow hard, okay.
the first thing I have for you this afternoon is a purchase request. This was a purchase that was brought to you last meeting. It's for a census calibration station. This is a calibration station for a census monitors. And I understand the board had a few questions that I have the answers for that I was going to present today. One of the questions I understand was there any reoccurring costs associated with this unit? The only reoccurring cost is the calibration gas that's used, but that is a reoccurring cost that we currently utilize now. The way I understand it, that we calibrate these units now is that we attach this gas to an SCBA cylinder and then just flood the units with the gas. And this unit here will use the same gas, but it'll actually meter it, so it'll be less usage of the gas. So there's no additional cost. It's just that is a cost that we already have. As far as any service cost to the units, this is a software-based unit, and I understand that it's set up for Windows 8, which is what we currently use now. The unit is warranted for 2 years, so if we were to change our operating system in the next 2 years, it'd be covered. But there are no service costs to the unit since it is software-based. And then the last question is, from what I understand, was there what the estimated life cycle of the unit is, and we are estimating 10 to 15 years. Because the current monitors, or the monitors that we use now, they're slated to be used for at least 10 to 15 years, and this Census station is designed to work with the current monitors we have, and there's very little repair or returns on this unit. So we're being told that this unit has an expected lifespan of 10 to 15 years. And I do have a purchase request if you wanted to consider it, and I think it was $4,843.
And other than potential software upgrades, there's no annual recalibration cost to have them come in and recertify? the
No,
unit?
according to Nathan, it is not, because it is all software-based.
Okay.
We will trust him, okay. I think we will entertain that one.
Consider that.
Would you like to do that one?
Mr. Paxton, do you have any questions?
Nope.
I'll make a motion to approve the following purchase request, 06916 to Firecraft Safety Products for calibration station in the amount of $4,843.65, and authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
A second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mr. Paxton?
Yes.
Ms. Graff?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. The next purchase request we have before you is for our monthly EMS supply order. This pretty much parallels what they've done in the past, except that it's a little larger because this purchase is for both November and December, because the end of the year spending, there's a deadline in December, so they're just wanting to purchase ahead to get us through the end of the year. So in case there'd be a need, we wouldn't have to come back for an emergency purchase. So this is for all of our supplies that we normally use, just keep our operations going, and I do have that purchase request if you'd like to consider it.
Yes, we don't want you to run out of supplies.
Shelf life is okay on anything that you're buying, it's not an issue, okay.
Yes.
And storage
It's
is
like
not an issue.
gloves
You have a place to store it, and you
Yes.
have shelf life is okay.
No,
Would there be dollars left in this account afterwards?
yes, $23,259.97 will be left.
And then is there any pending price increases for January or anything that you know of now?
Not that I know of. That's always a risk we take, but I haven't been advised of any.
Okay. So no, there's no advantage to go above and beyond what you've requested then, to go
No.
January, to go
No,
further.
not at this time.
Okay.
We shouldn't go ahead for the next 6 months or so.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll
Okay.
be all right.
Would you like to?
Yeah. So, these supplies basically are all normal supplies they'd use on routine things, so
Gloves and,
there's no embedded purchase in there.
No, this is all the
$2,500.
routine,
Okay,
this is just our routine
Supplies.
supplies for EMS operations, yes.
all right, I make a motion to approve the purchase request to Boundary Medical for EMS supplies. Request 07040 in the amount of $4,023.42.
and you want the township administrator to sign to the board.
Yeah, and have the township administrator sign for the board.
Second.
Mr. Paxton,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And then the last purchase that I have for you this afternoon is for vehicle charging stations. I understand this was brought to you, I think, in July.
Yeah.
And the chief has given me some information to pass on to you. This is going to be for 3 vehicle charging stations for the staff vehicles out here by the admin building. What we have is, we have planned by the end of the year to install the mobile data terminals in all of our apparatus. That includes our staff vehicles and the 1 prevention vehicle. With the installation of those units in our apparatus, they need to stay on to be fully utilized. And the reason that this is being brought to you today is because the way that the staff vehicles are set up, they're set up now is they're kept off, but that would also mean that the mobile data terminals are basically computers would be off. So if we were to go out to the vehicle and respond, we'd have to turn the vehicle on, the computer would have to come on, CAD would have to load, and you would have a delay in getting the information that you need from CAD with utilization of these terminals that we have. Now, one of the things that we looked at is, I looked at the different options. We can do nothing, just like I said, and the advantage is there's no cost to the township. The problem is that when we would go to respond, there would be a delay in getting that information. And one of the things that these terminals allow us to do through CAD is basically a push-button response. If we would jump in the vehicle and go to respond, we can basically hit a button that says that we're going to respond, and what that does is gives us accurate response data, and that's one of the things that was noted in the NOVAC report. If we don't do anything and we don't have these things readily available and we jump in there, we'll have to power the unit on, we're not going to be able to respond. It would pretty much be the same situation that we're having now. So this is a tool that gives us that advantage. Now, there are a couple other options. We could park the vehicles in the station next door and we could utilize the shorelines that are over there. The disadvantage is that we would displace other apparatus and we would have to move that apparatus. The other disadvantage to that is we would have to travel from this building over to the other building, which would add to the response or delay the response, versus the vehicles being right out front where our offices are, or the prevention office. The other option was to utilize the outlets that are already out there in the light post. We have 3 light posts there along the curbing. The problem there is we don't believe that those outlets were designed for this kind of service, so we don't know if there'd be an issue with the circuitry there. Also, with extension cords or whatever cord we'd use to have to stretch from there, there would be the potential of a hazard of cords laying in the sidewalk depending on where we're going to park these vehicles. So we could use that, but it does come with that. The last option is obviously installing these where we get the ability to keep the vehicles charged in a system that's designed safely and it's right by the vehicles, and it allows us to use those terminals.
How many terminals are needed? 3 separate ones?
From what I understand, yeah, it'd be three terminals, and each one would be able to charge 2 vehicles. So you'd have the potential to charge 6 vehicles.
Right now we have what, 4? We have the 3.
And we have the
chiefs
3 staff
the
vehicles and the prevention bureau, yes. So currently we have 4.
What do these things look like?
I'm not really sure. I don't know if maybe Tim can add, but I think it's just like a little post out of that's permanently mounted on the ground.
Okay.
Bollard receptacles actually mounted on the side. And actually, each one of the receptacles is its own 20 amp circuit, which is part of the problem with the light poles. Because the light poles, basically what you've got is 220 going out to the pole, and they just pull off one leg of it. So it's hooked into that circuit, so anytime the light's on, you don't know if you actually have a 20 amp service there or not.
Okay. And how does that concrete posts get attached to the electricity? What's the,
Goes underground and up through it.
it goes underground from the building? Okay. So we'd have to be getting something from the building, going down, tunnel underneath the sidewalk, come up and build the station.
Yeah, from what I understand, that's what the estimate is, that the company would install all that, and then we would make a connection to the station with a shoreline and an outlet that would be attached to the vehicle.
And the outlet from the vehicle, is it on the exterior of the car?
Yes.
That you plug in right near wherever the...
Our shift commander's vehicle already has one installed on the outside of the vehicle, yes. And I understand those are components that our maintenance department already has, and they're set up to install those if it's decided to go that route.
That was gonna be my question. Is there anything you have to add to the vehicles to do this?
From what I understand, we have everything now in the township to do that.
That is correct.
Okay.
And so the one question, the only difference then between option 3 and option 4 is having something go across the sidewalk?
Yes, and
And the unpredictability.
we don't
of,
know the
full-
circuitry
Full
ways.
20 amp. Okay.
And from what I understand, there's one outlet on each pole. So, I mean, if you use the closest pole and tried to charge or keep 3 vehicles, you might have to use an extension cord with a splitter, and you run into hazards with that.
One light goes out, they all go out.
Okay. Any further questions?
What was
Yeah, I
your,
have a couple questions. Well, number one, I thought they were gonna bring back some comparison figures on these items.
The only thing,
Compared to, one company to another company that offers the same thing. I thought that was where we were at with that. The other thing is, you're here for 8 hours. What are you gonna do for the other remaining 16 hours when you're at home?
well, what we would do there, at least it would be my assumption with me, is it would plug in at home. Now, it's just gonna be my vehicle. I mean, I wouldn't be in a parking lot with other vehicles, so, yeah, obviously we would need that there. It'd have to stay on there to get that same response.
One more thing that I think another option is, I was looking out here at this parking lot, right out front here. And I know there's a fuse panel right in that workroom right in there. And it looks like it has some openings for breakers in it. If we designate these parking places over here for staff apparatus, maybe 3 of them, and we run lines out over here from that pull up and down and over and run your boxes over here and maybe get a price estimate on what it would cost to do that, as opposed to towing under concrete and, if we're gonna run line, we can, talking about putting out, an outlet maybe here and then maybe 2 more outlets around one on one each parking place over there. And then you could designate that, specifically for apparatus, staff
vehicles.
apparatus, staffing apparatus.
It's an option. I just have to defer that to the maintenance department if that's something.
That's an option, right?
you'd still have the same bollards though, correct?
You would still have the same bollards. Cost-wise, the conduit's already there, because actually we were forward thinking enough. The conduit, there's a conduit that comes across the parking pole lights that were put in for the parking lot addition, is right behind the sidewalk, so basically just punching it out from there, and running the wires into the building. That's one. Number two, when we did the addition, I thought it was to free up space here to make this room more available. So we're trying to get everybody pushed that direction. I don't know.
So you already have conduit under the driveway?
Well, there's conduit on this side of the sidewalk going out.
Okay.
So it's just basically going under the sidewalk and then pushing it out into the.
So you're suggesting they would bore from there under
Either bore or take out the back end.
and pop up? Okay, or saw cut
I'd
it?
have to
Yeah.
go back on the quote, I think it was July, and I looked at a lot of quotes since then.
Oh,
To
so-
answer your other question, we did get another quote when they did the parking lot, and I don't remember what it was, but it was a lot more expensive than the one that's being presented today. So we do actually have 2 quotes for the project.
Mr. Paxton, is your concern that, because you've had concerns about this since January. Is your concern that we don't need to do it, or that I wanna make sure I understand, because you have a different perspective, background on it than I do. That we don't need it, or that we're doing it too costly of a way?
Well, a couple concerns, really. Number one is the planning of the apparatus and the coordinating of, the computers and the coordinating of what now has to be done, because we're putting these units in the vehicles. I have no idea what the police department does. They use computers, they use data.
It's
They don't use.
the same software.
They
In
don't
fact,
use-
in the cruisers, we had to make adjustments to make sure the computer stays live. What we had to do, when we were having issues with the Tahoe, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, is when the deputy would respond from the substation going into his vehicle, the computer would shut down. So we put some additional equipment in the new cruiser as well as the Caprice to allow, once the vehicle's turned off, it automatically switches to keep the computer running, which required more batteries and other equipment in the cars. That's what the police cruisers do. Now, most of the time, the police cruisers, this is police, sheriff, and every police department out there, the only time their cruisers are actually shut off is when it's at the station, whether at the police station or substation for us at the sheriff's office. Any other time, they carry the 2 sets of keys where the vehicle is ready to go, running in case of an emergency. So if they go to a noise complaint, and for example, in my neighborhood, they get out of the vehicle is locked because they carry another set of keys on their hip. But for example, if a traffic accident or something that has greater priority, they just jump in, ready to go. So a little bit different than the fire aspect, where vehicles are sitting, not running, and burning fuel, much like we do see in the sheriff or police cars. We even talked about putting auto injectors at one point, what's currently in the vehicles, staff vehicles, right?
We don't have any of them installed now, but the shift commander's vehicle does,
Yeah.
yeah, the one.
We even talked about doing that for the sheriff, but at one point, but this was because of the long-term keeping them running, there was the other option that we looked at.
Right, and basically what we've done with the sheriff's vehicle. There's a thing called a battery saver, which gives them 30 minutes. When they turn the key off, the computer will stay live. One of the things, just before we did the last cruiser came out, something from their IT department, they were losing hard drives because they didn't have that kind of equipment installed in their equipment, and they were shutting it off, and it would do a dead stop on the computer and blow the hard drives out. One of the things we've done with the new cruiser is actually, you can pull the keys out, push the little red button, get out of the vehicle, and the vehicle will stay there and run. And it's a safety thing. If you go in and try to put it in gear or whatever, it'll kill it right there. But once you put the key back in, you're ready to go. But the vehicle will sit there and idle with no keys in it, which is kind of another safety thing we've done for them, so they don't have to carry 2 sets of keys.
You would think somebody would come up with a UPS, an uninterruptible power supply that would be feeding off of the alternator charge and then stay there so your computers could be hooked into it and stay live. That'd be simple.
Yeah, it's just been my experience in the fire service different from the police, that, especially the fire, or the engines, they're connected to a shoreline stay.
Well, recurring costs on fuel to keep the vehicles running would be significantly more than this. This is a one-time cost. Which is true. What's your recommendation?
I recommend we move forward with it. We've kind of delayed this project waiting for mobile. Now, mobile's up and running in our fire engines.
And by the end of the year, in fact, one of the staff vehicles is out for installation right now as we speak. So by the end of the year, all the rest of them will have these mobile terminals in them.
Law enforcement's been using mobile. They were the first to go live with it, just because they use it for everything else, including ticket writer. But it does provide a lot of information. It does reduce radio traffic because everything's push button response, on scene we report, those type of issues. And for us, fire, on the fire side of things, it was delayed till police countywide was up and running, and everybody in Greene County's using it. Now everybody's using the fire mobile side of it. It does provide a lot of information at your fingertips. It provides routes, other equipment that's responding, hydrant location, any type of target hazards that are put in, and it actually will show you 2 different routes to get to the location on the screen, as well as what equipment's coming from where.
But to Mr. Paxton's point, if they don't plug them in at home, do they still have that functionality?
No, they're gonna have to plug it in.
No, we'd have to plug it in.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
well,
you're
there's-
gonna have a policy essentially in place that says that the people with those vehicles will plug them in at home.
Right. You'll have cords that you
Do
can.
we have a liability if they have some kind of a surge at their house and it blows up all of the equipment in the vehicle? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, that needs to be looked at. That,
Lightning or something hits it.
Surge
yeah, the
protection.
cord, all that. My only interest here is if it needs to be done, what? This is an option that hasn't been looked at. So what if we can get away with half the cost of running a line out from here, out to put plug boxes in out there, you still got the extension cord from the box to the vehicle you gotta deal with, which is the same thing you gotta do out here.
What components would be different if you put the charging stations here versus over there?
I'm not talking about charging, there's a cost of the charging station itself. I'm just talking about putting the conduit with the
Extension
box, the power box there. Then that's what I'm saying, is a power box, not the charging station. Because there's a cost to the charging stations, obviously. So, is this,
You get a waterproof box,
Yeah.
you're speaking of,
right,
you'd have to go price them. Basically, the ones that are being proposed here is nothing more than a steel pole. It's got wires coming up between it, running the 2 waterproof plugs.
But it's somewhat collision proof. If you
Yeah,
run in,
it'll
if you
dent the
run
car
in, if you run into it, it's gonna dent the car.
Where out here, I don't know how you would mount it, to be honest with you. I mean, I can't picture in my head what you're thinking.
we'd have a conduit coming out of the ground in the box right there. You'd have the conduit coming out of the ground
Mhm.
and the plug box right there. But,
How high up?
no, it doesn't
That's what they
level.
do.
Maybe low.
Okay, then you got 2 issues there. One,
Gets over the
I'll
snow.
lay 100 to 1 on it. We'll take it out with a snowplow because the poles that we put around so we don't hit the curbs, we hit those all the time, to be honest with you. And I'm the biggest offender because you're watching this mirror and this parking lot over here is so messed up the way it's configured. You're trying not to hit the mailbox and you're hitting a pole on the other side. So if you mount it that high, I think you're gonna have a better chance of getting them clipped, where if we mount them up,
No, I'm above snow high. I'm just saying it might be an option to look at.
Yeah.
It's well, by the time you get done, is that
Might be the same.
that includes running the wire and all that stuff? Does this include the electrical part of the?
yes.
I'm just saying it, you know, we're not out of options. The option might be just to look and see, have an electrician tell you what it's gonna be to run that out there.
Well, I think
If
what
it's gonna
you're
be
saying,
$2,500, you're gonna save,
I think what you're saying is that you would have something in the ground, so they have to put it in,
a plug.
and it'd be low, versus this cement thing, this is high, so we're talking about the cost of the cement to raise it up. That's the whole difference.
It's a commercial bollard is what they're
Yes,
thinking of.
yeah, and that is not,
How many
I can't
vehi-
believe that's very expensive.
They're expensive. I've bought enough of them. How many vehicles do you have to charge at one time?
Currently, it would be
4.
4 right now.
Okay.
We would have the 3 chief officers and then 1 prevention vehicle.
Okay. And from the bollard to the vehicle, there's gonna be a cord, correct?
Yes, from what I understand, it would be a shoreline. There would be 1 cord, yes.
Okay. And so we're gonna have 3 bollards with 2 outlets on each,
Correct.
serving 4 vehicles simultaneously.
Correct, at this time, yes.
And so if you're gonna have a cord running from the bollard to the vehicle, why can't you have 1 bollard with 6 outlets on it and run cords to each vehicle?
Be longer cords.
That would be more,
It would
our
do
goal
s-
is just
it
to
would-
have
it would do
I don't
the
have
same
an issue
thing
with that.
Mr. Paxton's suggesting, it would put it in a little more industrial casing.
I just don't know from
I would do
from
2 with
a
3.
maintenance, I mean, if
If you're
that's
gonna
something that can be
have a cord
done,
in
or just, the only other thing is that, I guess, yeah, you could have 6, potentially up to 6 vehicles charged, you just would have lines from one position going to 6 spaces versus maybe the thought of having 3 where your cord's not as long.
Yeah,
you know.
I could see two with each.
Because you're parking 6 vehicles.
Three.
You'd center them up, right? If right now you have 4, you could put one bollard
Well,
in
that's
between
true,
the two,
yes.
and then you could, I'm just throwing it out there as a little more industrialized enclosure to accomplish the same. You still have a cord.
Yeah, all right.
The spots they kind of designated were the 4 inside this parking lot, all the way at that end, and then the 2 here. So if you did one, you're still gonna run the extension cords across the side.
Yeah.
So
You
you
could do
almost-
2 with 3.
minimum would be 2.
Right. Well, 2 would be less than 3.
Well, 2 with 3
It's the
outlets.
same wires, it's still one conduit.
Or
It's
redesignate
just-
the parking places, I mean.
Or redesignate.
Well, they
I
would,
mean,
yeah.
that's, yeah, I mean, so you gotta walk 40 feet, 20 feet. I mean,
So if we do 2 with 3 outlets each, that reduces this by 1, is that?
It should reduce, it'll reduce some of the cost, it won't reduce it by
By a
a third.
third,
It'll be
yeah.
something less than a third, but it'll save some money. Personally, I think this is far more important than that screen on the wall. So I would vote for this, but I'd like to see you go through the exercise to see if you can cut it down to 2 or 1.
Well, we can do that. I mean, if you authorize this purchase, I can pass on to chief that we could look at the single.
I mean, maybe.
Our goal is
that's
just to get the
option.
power. I mean,
Right.
I'm
That
not.
has, that, in my opinion, that needs to happen, and it's as or more important than that screen I have to look at every meeting.
Okay. Would you
I
like to
that
make a
screen
motion
'cause
to
I
that?
can see the
At every meeting,
I
yes.
couldn't see that screen.
But I can see it now too. But,
Yeah, like tonight, we'll need that screen tonight.
And just wait, you, sir, you're not gonna be able to see it either, one of these days.
When I hold up my
Do
8.5
you
by
wanna-
11 sheet.
Do you wanna make a motion not to exceed with doing the options, so they don't have to wait till the next meeting to at least start them? Or do you want to give them the go-ahead to look at those other 2 options, 1 with 6, 2 with 3 each, or the 3 with the 2 each?
A less expensive option, I think, is the question. Is there a way to do it with a lower cost?
I'd like just to see what this would run.
So we
You
wanna
could
send,
designate those spaces right across there to, Chiefs, and then run them out there, they nose in there, and that way you leave all these open across the front for day-to-day traffic in and out of zoning and all that, and,
so how do we want a motion at this time, or do you want to put it off till you get those options? That's the question at this point.
I may have a solution for you,
Okay, well, we're gonna wait for Mr. Kress's solution.
Okay.
or suggestion. So your purchase request was not for the second and the third item on their quote.
Correct. It's just for
It's
the.
just for the first line item on the
Just-
quote, the 7550.
And I understand that quote is still valid.
Bear with me, sorry.
I just wanna look at the same, is it the same, is this one that we're looking at?
Right. I'll make a motion to approve the following purchase request 07157 to Saturn Electric for vehicle charging stations at fire administration in an amount not to exceed $7,552, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board. And I'll ask that Chief Marks and Chief work to come up with a lower cost solution, either by reviewing options to relocate the charging station, as Mr. Paxson indicated, or reduce the number of charging stations to serve the same number of vehicles.
Do I have a second?
okay, so, well, that was what the stipulation of? Read that motion.
It's the same motion, but then he would like the chiefs to work with a solution to either relocate or reduce the number of stations to service the same amount of vehicles
At a lower cost.
at a lower vehicles, at a lower.
Okay, so you approved the 7552.
Not to
Not to exceed, he said. Right.
I added not to exceed.
but to come back with a lower cost,
if possible.
okay? How do we know to do that? I mean, will we see how will we know if you,
We can request an email to come
have
out
an
with us
electrician
what
come out
the
here and-
options are.
What do
I
you
would-
suggest, Alex?
Well, I'll provide the information once staff looks in at all the options that were discussed here today, and to see if there's any options in relocation, and reducing the cost and the amount of stations that are provided.
Right. My intent is that if there is no lower cost solution, then my intent is to approve up to the requested amount. But with the understanding that you're professionals, you have the ability to work together and go out and get lower bids and look for a lower cost solution, and if you don't come back with one and there really was one, then
Yeah, the whole goal is to get the power, but if we can get it at a lower cost,
Right.
I don't have an issue with that.
right.
Makes sense.
That's what I'm presuming is that
all
you're.
right, see, my only concern there is, maybe this is the one question for you, Don, is once we start working on those sidewalks and taking something out, do we now have to bring them up to code? Because it may not meet a certain,
You're gonna bore under, you're not gonna go through.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that was my understanding that they were gonna go underneath and not rip up the sidewalks.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, but you're not pushing that big of a conduit.
Yeah.
Now the curb might have to be cut to get out.
That's a curb.
Pass back in, so that's only a curb, so.
It's a repair.
here's my only other concern here. All right, I have lots of concerns, and I'll probably speak to this next meeting, but here you have a project, all right, with computers and all this, and I just think if this was done under a project management plan, all these issues would be planned out ahead of time, and we would know what these costs are, okay, built into the whole project. And so I just feel like it's piece part in here, piece part in there, we're putting these computers in, now we gotta have, the power for it, because we got issues with them when they go out, they can't come on right away, and, it's gonna delay our response time and all that, and I just think, in my opinion, it's not thought out all the way, and, that maybe we could have had this issue solved before the computer, would go in, or thought maybe we could have all these things, estimated, the locations and all that, and planned out ahead of time. That's all I'm saying is.
I agree, Mr. Paxton, it goes to the total cost of ownership concept. So what's the total cost of ownership gonna be with recurring and non-recurring costs? So, and like he pointed out, so.
Well, it did come in with the original concept of the expansion of the parking lot. And when the expansion of the parking lot concept significantly changed, this piece, which was part of that original one, knowing that we would need it for those computers that were coming in, was set aside, waiting till the parking lot got configured and redone. So I would say that we have heard about these stations or similar kinds of stations way back at the beginning of the project. So that it's not a last minute add-on, it was originally in the original concept of the parking lot that was gonna be adjacent to the building versus the one that we built. Because we built the new parking lot at a different cost and delayed the power attachments until that was completed. So I don't think that it's fair to say that it wasn't considered up front, because up front, it was put in front of us. Okay?
The second or not?
So were you gonna second or not?
Well, I just wanna add,
Okay.
I just wanna respond to that. And this happens a lot, and this is what concerns me. Is projects running together, all right? So we had a need for parking spaces, 19 parking spaces, 15 or whatever it was, I can't remember exactly. So that was our immediate need. So in the background, there's another project going on with these charging stations, and they're running together. You're adding the whole cost of the whole project into one. And I don't think that's a good thing to do. I think that you're gonna run this as a project, and you run the whole thing as a project and the cost of the whole thing. Then you run the parking lot as a whole project, and you don't run them together under one. If they cross, they cross, but you define where they're gonna cross, and you make note of that, and you expect it, okay? You expect them to cross at a certain location, so when we approve an expense and you have this and you have this project and this project coming together, then we know why we're approving that expense. But a lot of expenses get approved when projects run together, i.e. the station alerting system and the Marks Radio program.
Okay, well,
Coming
we
together.
see it differently, which is fine, because that's what life's about.
And I'm saying just run it as a different program, you know what the costs are, so when you make a purchase request and an approval, we know what it's for.
Okay.
It would
So
certainly
we
clear
have
things up.
we have a motion, do I have a second? I will second it.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Graff?
Yes.
Mr. Paxton?
No.
Okay, I have a bi-weekly report, anything?
Thank you, Board.
Any questions on the report?
There's just a couple of things that the chief wanted me to point out that in this last period here, we did post a list of promotional candidates that was posted on Wednesday. We have 10 excellent candidates to choose from for the next potential promotional process that we will have. That was all contractually based, so that's been done. And then also just to note in our report that during this last period, we did have a bed bug exposure. The crews responded to a residence where there was a bed bug infestation. The crews returning to the station did all their appropriate decontamination. The pest control contractor that the township has came out and actually found a live bug along with some shells in the medic. So was able to take care of that, but we have a real issue with that, and it's a good thing that we have that system in place. That could have been potentially a very bad thing for the firehouse, so he wanted me to note that.
How do you know in advance? Or do you know which houses already
Well,
have infestation?
we have one address, and then we do get information from dispatch. Sometimes she will put that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you
And that is
sort
something that would be that's in CAD that we could get off the systems we were just talking about, but currently they do announce that over dispatch.
So
Okay.
if there was a prior, if you knew it from a prior visit, you would know it, but going in.
to look,
you don't.
going in and. you might
No, we
not.
don't.
Okay.
There's, and I'm sure there's so many exposures out there that we don't know about, but if there is anything that we do find, we've got this system in place that works very well.
Did you say you had a detector? They make like a detector, like
They do.
yeah, a handheld dude.
We do not have that. No, I
electronic
did
thing.
not know that.
Yeah,
Yeah, they make one.
Yeah, it's just our pest control contractor upon inspection found a live bug, which is pretty creepy actually. But.
Okay. Appreciate the list of public events. Our people have been quite busy, and
Yes, with this past Fire Prevention Week, we had quite a bit and a very successful open house, but I know the chief has already mentioned that. Yep.
Good. Thank you.
okay, any other questions for Chief Marks? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Legal advisor.
No report.
Trustees, have any? I think Mr. Barone has sent us the conference information and has given us some of the conference information. And within the next couple of weeks or within the next month, let him know whether we are planning to, who is planning to attend the conference, and then the duration over which we would be staying, so that those plans can be made in a reasonable time frame. And I've asked Mr. Barone to get the wording for us on how we should designate for the public records. Because it says, pursuant to revised code 109.43B, attendance at a 3-hour mandatory training is required by elected official or their designee, and that would be every term of the elected official. So I've done it twice. I don't, if I do not have to do it a third time, I would appreciate the wording to designate a designee. So he'll bring it forth at the next meeting or two. And we can act on it at that time. Okay. Fiscal officer.
We just had a reappropriation.
Yeah, I actually have a reappropriation for the sheriff fund. Beginning of January, I opened up a purchase order for $360,000 for the sheriff's contract for 2014. However, the sheriff's contract 2014 didn't start till March. So I had December, January, and February that should have been paid out in 13s. Purchase order that got closed and rolled to the next year, so now I'm not gonna have enough money. So right now, the contingency has about $471,000 in it. It's pretty high, and it shouldn't be, and the reason it's so high is because I need money in the other line. So now I need you to move it so that I can open up a purchase order to take care of the rest of the contract until February 28th.
So we're paying 15 months in a 12-month period?
Yeah, and I only opened up a 12-month contract, so I needed a little bit extra money to finish that out.
Does that happen every year?
Well, no, the contract didn't get done in time, so we ended up pushing it to March, and
Okay.
hopefully maybe Mr. Zaharia and Mr. Fisher can work out maybe doing it January to December, which makes it a lot easier for my office. But until we can get to that point, I need a little extra money.
Yeah, we are looking at a longer term contract. The problem with the last contract is that the sheriff's office was in contract negotiations with their deputies, and we didn't have a true cost until the contract was settled. Now there are we'll be starting in 15 the second year of the 3-year contract. So we could, and the sheriff would like also, since we know the cost for the next 2 years, to go ahead and do a longer term contract for the next 2 years. Following that, we'll be in the same kind of hurry up and wait mode to see what they do with their contract negotiations for the third year.
Okay, I think you have the
Yep.
motion here.
Okay. A resolution number to be added, whereas the Board of Trustees, Beavercreek Township, Greene County, State of Ohio, move for the approval of the following. To reappropriate from account 2191-930-930-0000 contingencies for sheriff to account number 2191-210-360-000 contracted services to a sheriff in the amount of $110,000.
Second.
Mr. Paxton?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Graff?
Yes.
Therefore now be resolved that the Beavercreek Township, Greene County, State of Ohio favorably pass the above resolution.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else to come before the board before we go into executive session? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1 to consider the compensation of public employees.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mr. Paxton?
Yes.
Ms. Graff?
Yes.